The U.S. proposes the bill to cancel China's most favored nation status, causing CCP panic. The U.S. blacklisted 5 Chinese companies for human rights violations. Alibaba's business empire to be restructured into 6 groups in major shakeup. TikTok's future in the U.S. A ban allows a 20-year prison sentence? Experts, if China took control of Taiwan, it could disrupt global power dynamic.
U.S. Senator Josh Hawley just proposed a bill to cancel normal trade with China. Once this bill is passed, all Chinese products exported to the U.S. may be subject to increased tariffs. This will shake both China and the U.S.'s economy and lead to a chain reaction in many other countries. This makes the Chinese Communist Party feel tremendous pressure during the post-pandemic economic downturn. China's second and third-tier media outlets have been saying critical, condescending, and even threatening things about this, saying it will cause great damage to the U.S. and the world economy. Some second-tier media even changed their minds and wanted to strengthen ties and cooperation with the U.S. for mutual benefits. Meanwhile, NetEase published an article titled "The U.S.'s Long-Arm Jurisdiction Damages International Relations." It stated the long-arm jurisdiction is the U.S. excessive abuse of political power in order to show the global hegemony, which has seriously damaged the democratization against the international relations and the United Nations-centered international system. The most favored nation status dates back to the 1980s. At that time, the U.S. government reviewed and approved certain benefits annually. By the mid-1990s, it was defined as permanent. In 2000, it was transformed into a permanent, normal commercial relationship. The U.S. and China have gradually become trading partners, and the Chinese government has indeed reaped huge economic and technological benefits from the U.S. By 2020, bilateral trade turnover between two countries was nearly $560 billion. Under the Trump administration, on the China-U.S. trade relationship, senior government officials said the U.S. is being taken advantage of and highlighted the U.S. trade deficit with China. This deficit exceeded $285 billion in 2020. Earlier this year, some Republican senators introduced the China Trade Relations Act to permanently strip normal trade relations with China. Senator Josh Hawley's bill allows the U.S. and the U.S. president to impose higher tariffs on imported goods. This tax is permanent and more strict. Vision Times believes in recent years, some high-ranking U.S. government officials and senior members of both houses have increasingly seen the CCP's lying face. Their scams include public robbery, intrusion, retaliation, bribery, intimidation. Therefore, the voices of decoupling, stopping chip supply, sanctions, blacklisting, technology blockade, and technology protection for China resound one after another. Under the Trump administration, the U.S.-China trade war also happened, making the CCP very nervous and repeatedly sent high-level delegations to the U.S. to negotiate. In the process, they had to make some concessions and meet many of the U.S. conditions. At that time, the national security strategy released by the U.S. government at the end of 2017 criticized China's domestic and foreign policies on many fronts and called China and a few other countries the U.S.'s competitors. In response, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said China hopes the U.S. will comply with relevant commitments, maintain stable development of China-U.S. relations, and serve the interests of both countries and the world. Why does the CCP feel so much pressure from this? Because China's permanent revocation of MFN status means China's products cannot enjoy normal trade relations. China cannot participate in U.S. financial investment schemes, and the U.S. president cannot sign any trade deals with China. Furthermore, it is up to the U.S. president to decide whether or not this incentive should be extended. Even if the president agrees to an extension, Congress still has the power to overturn his decision. China basically cannot get the most favored nation treatment again.
On March 28th, the United States sanctioned 5 Chinese companies. These 5 companies are included in the Ministry of Commerce's export control blacklist. The U.S. government's move aims to protect human rights around the world. The 5 companies listed on the entity list are Luopu Haixi Dingxin Electronic Technology Co., Moyu Haixi Electronic Technology Co., P Shanghai Pishan Haixi Yong'an Electronic Technology Co., Urumqi Haixi Xin'an Electronic Technology Co., and Yutian Haixi Meitian Electronic Technology Co., Ltd. All 5 companies registered in Xinjiang are Hangzhou Hikvision Digital Technology Co., Ltd. subsidiaries. This company is a state-owned Chinese manufacturer, supplying surveillance cameras to northwest China. The Commerce Department said that the companies have been implicated in human rights violations and abuses in the implementation of China's campaign of repression, mass arbitrary detention, and high-technology surveillance against the Uyghur people and members of other Muslim minority groups in Xinjiang. The US government has increasingly used the entity list to sanction Chinese companies that violate human rights. Being added to the entity list means that US suppliers must obtain a license to sell goods to listed companies.
Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba Group will be restructured into 6 separate business units and seek public listings for most of them, in the biggest restructuring since the company was founded 24 years ago. Reuters reported that the company unveiled the plan on March 28th, one day after its founder Jack Ma made a surprise return to China following a lengthy overseas stay. The 6 business groups will focus on such sectors as cloud computing, e-commerce, and logistics. The new 6 units include Cloud Intelligence Group, Taobao Tmall Commerce Group, Local Service Group, Canyo Smart Logistics, Global Digital Commerce Group, and Digital Media and Entertainment Group. Each of the 6 units will have its own CEO with full responsibility and board of directors and could raise outside capital like seeking initial public offering. Chief Executive Daniel Zhang said in a letter to staff, "The original intention and fundamental purpose of this reform is to make our organization more agile, shorten decision-making links, and respond faster." Zhang will remain as chairman and CEO of Alibaba Group, which will follow a holding company management model. He also serves as CEO of Cloud Intelligence Group. Analysts said the split could soften scrutiny over Alibaba, which has been a target of the Chinese regime's regulators for years. The U.S.-listed shares of the Chinese e-commerce giant have lost nearly 70% of their value since the restrictions were imposed in late 2020. Alibaba's restructuring is the biggest corporate move by a major Chinese tech firm in recent years, as the industry has been under tight regulatory oversight. The company's shares increased on Monday after founder Ma returned to China, as the industry viewed his return as an easing sign from the regime for its private businesses.
People worldwide, especially social media users, might be concerned about the future of TikTok in the US, as the Chinese-owned app faces much pressure from American lawmakers these days. Earlier this month, a group of bipartisan senators introduced a sweeping bill that has garnered public attention. The Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technology, or RESTRICT Act, would grant the Secretary of Commerce broad regulatory authority over technology produced in nations with hostile relations with the United States. Such countries include China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela. The act is moving toward unanimous support in Congress. Although neither TikTok nor its owner, ByteDance, are mentioned explicitly in the Restrict Act, the senators who presented the legislation have repeatedly highlighted the privacy concerns that TikTok creates. As a result, the measure has already been referred to as a TikTok ban. The ban's criminal penalties, including a fine of up to $1 million and/or a term of up to 20 years in prison, have raised some concerns among those who have studied the legislation. In addition, they have questioned whether some TikTok enthusiasts might face punishment for using a virtual private network, or VPN, to circumvent the ban and access the app. But a representative for the bill's proponent, Senator Mark Warner, told Newsweek that it would not apply to individual users. Warner's communications director, Rachel Cohen, said, "Under the terms of the bill, someone must be engaged in sabotage or subversion of communications technology in the US, causing catastrophic effects on US critical infrastructure, or interfering in or altering the result of a federal election in order for criminal penalties to apply." She clarified, "The bill is squarely aimed at companies like Kaspersky, Huawei, and TikTok that create systemic risks to the United States' national security, not individual users." Several GOP senators are backing the Restrict Act. Among the Republicans named as co-sponsors of the Restrict Act are Senators Dan Sullivan, Susan Collins, John Thune, Deb Fisher, Jerry Moran, and Mitt Romney.
According to defense and intelligence experts, the Chinese regime has many ambitions behind its statement to take Taiwan. Among them are Taiwan's industrial production capabilities and good foothold in the area to break up U.S. influence in the region, according to Fox News. Last summer, the Chinese Communist Party officials issued a policy document on Taiwan that outlined a one country, two systems. The approach is similar to that of Hong Kong and Macau, which have special administrative region status. After the CCP introduced a new security law in Hong Kong to punish citizens found guilty of secession, subversion, or terrorism, the observers see that military action seems increasingly likely if Beijing seeks to take control of Taiwan, especially when Taiwan offers significant advantages economically and strategically. Brent Sadler, a senior research fellow at the Center for National Defense, said, "If the Chinese can then turn Taiwan into a base of operations, they have direct access to the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean." He added, "Most of the East China Sea is pretty shallow. That has a problem when you get into submarine and anti-submarine warfare. It's a lot more conducive to submarines in the Pacific. So if you're trying to break out of the first island chain, Taiwan is one way of doing that." Sadler also stated that if China can break Taiwan, it is believed to be able to break all the U.S. security alliances that are perceived as a threat. And in case China can take control of Taiwan, it can get the freedom of navigation, which would change world trade. According to Emily de la Bruyere, a senior fellow at the Organization for the Defense of Democracy, control of Taiwan would give China a new base of foreign operations to express power in the region, amplifying the disputes with neighboring countries. If China were to capture Taiwan, it would be a significant blow to the United States, as it would signal the international system is now China's world. She told Fox News Digital, "All China has to do is give a signal, a little bit more aggressiveness vis-a-vis Taiwan, and the U.S. will pour money and political capital into sending military support to Taiwan, which risks preventing money and political capital from going elsewhere in the competition with China." Matt McInnes, a senior fellow for the Institute for the Study of Wars China program, said if China was able to unify forcefully or account for Taiwan, they would gain the commanding heights of the semiconductor business globally and put the U.S. and our allies in a very difficult position to be able to maintain our current economic activity and in some ways maybe even our quality of life. He added, "The global supply chain for semiconductor production is so interdependent among Taiwan, the US, South Korea, the Netherlands, Japan, and China. But Taiwan's semiconductor industrial infrastructure currently produces 65% of the world's semiconductors and almost 90% of the advanced chips." So he highlighted that capturing Taiwan, which of course makes the most advanced semiconductors in the world, would really shift the balance of economic and technological power globally.